Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com, Mana Traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like yourself. I am Evan Irwin. We'll get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? Man, this has been a wild week in just the world, so we have a billion things to talk about.
It's been a lot. It's been a lot. Ruben Bressler.
Yeah, it's going to be an awkward show, I think. It's nice to have everyone here to commiserate.
Hey, even non-Magic stuff, there was a lot of news. Y'all missed that if you didn't get here for the pre-show.
Sometimes you just want some friends to hang out.
Yeah, so we talked about all sorts of stuff in the pre-show. Patrons and subs to this channel get access to that and stuff early and later. And we kick it off with our first pick in our giveaway. Well, our giveaway has turned into our promo code, Magic Mics, to save 5% off anything in the store. CoolStuffInc.com has all sorts of stuff. So instead of one person winning, everybody gets to win. Everybody gets 5% off whatever they want. So you get to go there, check it out, use promo code Magic Mics, get 5% off your next order at CoolStuffInc.com. And later, we are going to raid an awesome streamer with your suggestions. So we see who we raid tonight, thanks to our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And before we begin here, we wanted to note a few bits of, upkeep. There is no Baldur's Gate 3 streams until 2024. We were supposed to last night, but there was a really funny story about that. You can hear it in the pre-show. It was a whole thing. Top 10 murders of Karlov Manor is coming soon. Top 10 cards of the year is another thing we'll want to do.
Right. We'll do another top 10 of those.
For sure. And Magic Mike sees the Magic Mics are coming on 12/28, December 28th, with all 4 hosts. MTG Nerd Girl will be here along with my 2 cohorts, and we will be crushing it through all of the award categories and going over the year, good, bad, and ugly.
Yep.
Speaking of ugly. So Hasbro announced that they were going to lay off 1,100 employees. This is the size of many small businesses.
Many large businesses.
And
1,100.
Large is, yes. And like 200 people is a big small business. This is 5 plus of those. Anyway, they call it a lever we must pull to keep Hasbro healthy, which is always super gross. The majority of impacted employees will be told, quote, over the next 6 months. So we're already hearing about lots of big layoffs, like names you've heard of in the Magic community, David McDarby, Paul Cheon, some of these people who've been in Magic and working at Wizards for many, many years. David McDarby, particularly like 9+ years. Cheon's been there, 7 or 8? Just a ton. And the fact that they are being laid off this way while Wizards out of the other side of their mouth are saying this has been the biggest year for these brands. We've been absolutely crushing it. Revenue's been nuts. And meanwhile, the Hasbro side of things has been a disaster. And that's putting it mildly. The toy division is bleeding money. The E1 thing, they're finally getting rid of at $500 million when they paid $4 billion for it. And it's just a mess. It's tough to even talk about because everything's gross and everybody's unhappy.
Yeah, it's one of those ugly things. I mean, from their side, just everything changed behavior-wise, spending-wise, whatever, with COVID and the pandemic. And I don't, like a lot of companies, I don't think they were prepared for the changes. I don't think they plotted, like a lot of people during the pandemic, like, oh, there's money and whatever. It's like, yeah, it's not always going to be like this. Like people are going to go back to doing other things and not buying your stuff. Like, do you have a plan for that? And I think it's just now just catching up to them. They're even saying there's still some supply side things that are just getting worked out. The tough thing for me, though, is just I get trying to share the pain throughout the company and all your different divisions have to let some people go or whatever. But the reality is, if you have a company that's doing very well, exceptionally well, beating all the metrics across the board year after year, it's weird. And I've seen this in other companies too, but it's weird to say like, oh, we all have to let some people go too. Like, to me, that almost feels like some people probably want to let some people go, and we're going to use the layoffs as an excuse to let some people go, more than like y'all need to let some people go, which is even a worse feeling, honestly.
Yeah, the idea that there was a statement that they need to, and this is so corporate, it's just killing me. To meet their long-term gross cost savings goals, they have to reset their cost base and remove complexity to help ensure they're well positioned as they sharpen their innovation pipeline. Like, what are you saying? What are these words meaning?
it means they're probably going to go in new directions, and they're going to end up cutting just a lot of toy lines, probably, or put less investment into them, knowing that there's a new ceiling to them. Especially coming off of, like, people forget it's not that long ago that Toys R Us went away. Though they're making a comeback, oddly. That's an interesting story.
Which is good.
But the fact that was one of the big ways they moved a bunch of stuff, and places like that don't exist anymore. You know, and you got to adjust.
And as usual, Patrick Sullivan has the greatest takes. He's like a perfect take machine. And he says on Twitter, hard to describe seeing posts from friends, former colleagues, professional acquaintances who worked on something people love, who cared, and who by all accounts contributed to record profits, sacrificed at the altar of endless growth 2 weeks before the holidays.
Yep.
And, if this is about something over 6 months and you decided to axe people right before Christmas, the holiday, the 2 weeks they famously get at the end of every year, they don't get that now. Like, it's a rug pull, and it hurts, and I hate it, and it just kind of blows my mind. Some of the people they've let go.
Yeah. When I saw the announcement, when I woke up and saw that Hasbro was letting go of 1,100 people, I said, first of all, that's got to be a typo. That's bigger than most small towns, much less companies.
It's a lot.
That's absurd. They have so many earnings. How could this possibly be what is happening? And also, surely WotC is safe. Surely their one golden goose is safe from these layoffs. No, apparently not.
That's crazy.
A bunch of the names in particular are, there's a bunch from Magic, but there's also, to my mind, bigger names from D&D. Mike Merles, who's been around there for a long time. Chris Lindsay, who helped create the DMs Guild. Dan Dillon, who's been there for 5 years or so and has been outward facing, one of the people that gets interviewed for product releases. Amy Dallin, who was the D&D Beyond host and producer for a very long time, and who I know through the LA D&D streaming scene. Just huge numbers of people that, like, it cuts high, which was crazy to me. I was flabbergasted by this news. And it is shocking, not only from a perspective of being a human, and you're sad when anyone gets laid off or whenever any job ends. That is a human reaction. Of course, that's bad. But the sheer number and the lack of knowledge of why or how this came about. The company must be doing something wrong, right? That is the only conclusion I can come to, is that something is wrong about, either they haven't adapted to changes, or people aren't buying toys as much, but kids still exist. Like, I don't understand how this can happen.
That's
and
part
sneak
of it,
up on us.
But it's also corporate America, right? Like, there are many companies that have shown that they made money and sadly still release hundreds of employees, right? Because a certain thing didn't make enough money, or you told people, well, we were expecting to hit $3 billion and we only hit 2.8. So now stocks are in the thing and we got to get rid of people, right? That's just how we operate on a corporate level in the US, and it sucks because it doesn't always make sense, but you got to take care of shareholders and you got to keep public perception a certain way and look like you're doing everything you can to get every dollar, and it ends up with people losing their jobs.
And there are different ways that you can respond to this. Let's cut back to, what was it, 10 years ago or so, when Nintendo was having serious problems. The Wii U was basically a disaster from start to finish, and the company was going through lean times. And what did the CEO do? He didn't, chop a bunch of people off. He cut his salary in half. A bunch of, I think Shigeru Miyamoto cut his by 30%. So he wouldn't have to do something like this, and says that, well, if they're hurting and the company's hurting, well, I'm hurting and I need to do things that I can. And so then you see Chris Cox brought in almost $10 million between salary and bonuses. And you're like, That's a whole bunch of money. And, you know, do you need 10 million plus a year to live? You know, you can do less than that so that many people could stay on and we could weather this out. Again, weather when you've already made Magic over $1 billion a year brand. It's so weird to try to like connect those two dots of you just laid off tons of people that have a ton of institutional knowledge and have been there for a very long time and know how to get things done. And just because these shareholders have decided that you suck. Remember that private equity company that was like, we really need to get Wizards out of Hasbro? I'm pretty sure this is what they were talking about, because look at what splash damage is happening because Hasbro screwed it up so bad.
Yeah, so but there's still the I think they will still recover from this.
Sure.
I just think a lot of what they do is going to look a lot different than it does today.
Yeah, it's going to be really gross. And so I don't want to harp on it too much. We've talked about it enough, but it sucks, and our hearts go out to all those who were affected and hope that they land on their feet sooner than later. We move on with our first pick to gather the townsfolk thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience, which is having a vintage cube right now. Hey, yo. Use the code MAGICMICS for 12% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. It's cool. It's fun. We appreciate their support. So move on to Gather the Townsfolk. Talk about a little something positive, at least for the time being. The Timeless format came out on Arena just the other day. Actually, yesterday? And it's been a lot of fun. In my opinion, I got to play it. I'm a whale. I've been playing since beta, so I've got a bajillion cards for all the stupid formats or whatever. I accidentally crafted 4 lightning bolts because they're rare on the client. Because there was like a wild card, there was like a free, you know, you could build whatever deck you want thing, regardless of your collection, but it will still tell you, do you want to craft those cards? So I crafted them. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to use with 4 lightning bolts? Well, now I could use my 4 lightning bolts, which was cool. And you can run Expressive Iteration, you can run Brainstorm, you can run Dark Ritual. Like, it's sweet. It's actually sweet. And to me, what I felt like playing that is we're in legacy territory. It doesn't have the Wastelands. It doesn't have the Force of Will, but it's got that really intricate, super high powered, like what, you know, if you ever get to play Vintage or ever get to play Legacy, what happens is there's a leveling because everything is super powerful, which means everybody is like, can I do this? Can I make that happen? Can I lay a threat? You know what I mean? It's this real intricate type of walk because when everything is so super powered and your games are lasting 5 or 6 turns, everything matters. Everything. The lands that you go fetch for, the sequence in which you play them, whether you attack or not with your Deathrite Shaman versus trying to use it at the end of their turn, all of that weird stuff, everything matters. And that is rad. I also want to choke Orcish Bowmasters out to death. I just want to just hold it underwater.
Yeah.
Because you can't brainstorm into 2 open mana, never ever, or you will just die. And that's another part of that format, right? Where you're walking that edge of like, can I play
Treasure Cruise?
It's so sweet though. It's so cool. I love when it's super powered. It's highly
it's kind of like it's similar to, like, I would call it like the digital equivalent of shoebox Magic right now. It's just like whatever you have, bring it. Let's play some games of Magic, right? It's not powerful enough to put you in that legacy vintage territory yet,
right?
But you have enough things that it's obviously stronger than most of historic at this point, right? So it'll be a lot of fun to see where it develops as we get more of those older sets added to Arena.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where we don't need, you know, full sets of X or full sets of Y. We just need like 40 or 50 cards to get, honestly, most of Legacy, if not most of Vintage, and a lot they already have there. They already have all the Moxen and the Power 9 in the client, which is something we've also talked about. But, you know, ultimately even when I was playing the super high powered 4 Ragavans, whatever, you know, deck, I lost to a mill deck. It can happen. Like, Tasha's Hideous Laughter versus like a Delver type deck is a whooping.
Amazing.
It was a whooping. And so like you can't always get them with Dragon Rage Chandlers by default. Like it does still happen. So silliness and craziness, I love it.
I'm hopeful for the future of the Timeless format, partially because at least at the outset, every deck is just like, I want to play Lightning Bolt, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime Lightning Bolt is the card, I'm kind of happy.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like burn decks and Izzet decks and Rakdos decks and Omnath decks and stuff like that. And they're all just like, yep, it's Lightning Bolt time.
And I can play
Which is great.
Oko. I can play Oko. I can play.
Yeah, there you go.
I've waited so many years. I waited so many years to play that stupid Planeswalker, and my God, he's so good. He's so dumb. And you get to play with Once Upon a Time. You remember how stupid that card is? Oh my God, it's free. Holy cow. Super neat. Absolutely love it. I love playing powerful Magic, and that is the definition of the most powerful thing you can do on Arena. And I think that's rad. Congrats go out to the Eternal Weekend champions, TK Strauchen or Strauchen, I'm not sure how to say that, who won the Legacy event. Let's go ahead and get them on screen here so we can show them off, because they won. Well, we were just talking about Lightning Bolt. Well, here they won a full painting of Lightning Bolt. Go away, X. Don't be weird.
Damn.
Yeah, so congratulations to them. They crushed it. And for the vintage winner, we have Anthony Valentine, who got a Black Lotus painting, which is also super
very
rad.
cool. Yeah,
bringing them up on stage here, but yeah, this is from my card.
Each of those are 1-of-1 pieces, by the way, right? Done just for prizes for the event.
Just for prizes.
Yeah, so you've got a couple $1,000 piece you're holding in your hand there. So like good prize.
Oh yeah, lovely prizes. And they've been doing this for a long time, and I think it's great. So congratulations to them. Like, they had a huge turnout. You know what I mean? Like, people do want these larger events to come back in some form or fashion. And this is about the best we have right now.
Seems like this was, I mean, I heard nothing bad all weekend, read nothing bad all weekend, pretty much, about how the event was run, that the meta games were, you know, interesting and open and available. Like, there was a really interesting couple of decks in the top 8. I mean, you had 2 Oath decks in the top 8. Oath is a deck that is not always super popular, and was this was the vintage tournament, and ended up being won by a control deck, which is tough for vintage sometimes as well. And then on the North American side of things, you had Painter in the finals, ladies and gentlemen. You had Cephalid Breakfast in the top 8. You had a lot of crazy stuff happening. So I was entertained the whole way through.
Very nice.
But, you know, I'll say this too. Like, they've been running these for a long time. It feels like a decade now or whatever. They've been doing these.
Time, yeah.
So they've got the experience, the history, the players know. Like, even when registrations, I think both events sold out at like 900, or like right around 1,000 people. Yeah. So people know already. If you're into those audiences, you know, if you're playing vintage or legacy, like, this is the event of the year that everybody's saving up for, trying to go to. So I would expect these would just keep on and keep growing, you know, as the years go on. Because, again, like you said, there's almost nothing negative coming out of these events at this point, because they've got it down to a science, right? Everybody knows what to expect. Like, as long as the meta games are fine, there's not going to be anything else really to complain about on these events. And I think there's still room for other big events to be happening. But you need people who have the experience or the finances to be able to take the chance on it, or know what they're doing to run some of these things. Because contrary to popular belief, there's as we've seen with some other organizations that did not do a good job a couple months ago, right? It takes a bit more planning and forethought to pull off events this big.
Yeah, you know, and also, you know, so for example, someone's mentioned, like, are they going to do the second Eternal Weekend a year? I don't think you should do that, because you're going to water down what makes this a special thing. Because the Legacy Paints, they're a very unique kind of Magic player.
It's tough.
They're awesome,
right?
But they're old school, and they're not going to be able to go to every event ever. They've got families, they got lives, they got $5,000 decks. You know what I'm saying? So, like, they got one weekend. They'll make that one weekend work every single year. And if you try to do it again, you're going to have, you know what happened when Wizards tried to do 2 master sets in a year? It wasn't great.
Right.
Which, I mean, hey, people forget, once upon a time, Gen Con Soul Cow was a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then 2 years later, it was not a thing.
Yeah, because that stuff takes a lot of effort. You'd be surprised how easy it is to lose money. And so somebody's like, why isn't it a 2-day event?
Once a year.
Because it's twice as much everything when you run a 2-day event versus a 1-day event.
Perspective from a TO perspective, too, is that, especially with somebody who's run this a lot, they know their area, they have relationships with the venues, you know, whatever. You go to a new venue and a new city, and you have to learn the logistics, and you're shipping stuff in, and you got to deal with maybe unions because you didn't have one at your place, and like the way things are handled, that changes everything for an event. So if they have this down to science and they're running it perfectly and everybody's happy, you're better off just having the one a year, I think, and just make it a spectacle when you do it.
Yeah, I think that if there was going to be a second Eternal event a year that was on this scale, Well, first of all, there is one, and it's Europe, but you're talking about United States,
right? Another United States event.
Another United States one. I don't know what the hunger is for it, because I don't know that you'd want one in the summer on the East Coast. And I don't know that you'd want one on the West Coast either 3 months before, 3 months after, or in the middle of the country.
Right.
It'd be tough to do. It would have to be a different TO, probably. I wouldn't think that Pastimes would want to run two of these and then put one of them in St. Louis or Chicago.
Yeah. Knowing the legacy sort of community, you would always want to be in the Northeast US if you're in the US.
Right.
Because that's where the people who have those cards are. They don't.
Also, I will say this: the way I view it is like every April or whatever.
Titan,
like,
not Pastimes. My bad.
WWE does WrestleMania, right? And it's this whole thing, and it takes over the whole city, and there's billboards, and it's bananas, right? Like you're filling these like 70,000 seat stadiums or whatever.
Right.
You don't need a second WrestleMania every year, right? Like it's a spectacle. It's the Super Bowl of wrestling. It's all this because it's only once a year, right? And we can make a big deal of it, and you can have all your storylines lead up to that thing, whatever. Kind of the same thing here. Like it's fun and it's interesting, and people are seeing each other once a year because they're all going to the same event every year, whatever. Like you have that second one. Well, now some people go, I'm probably not going to make it to the one in the winter because this one's closer to me, or, you know, I can just go down the street. And then now you're not seeing people, and now those people aren't as excited, so they're not seeing their old friends anymore. Like
it can be
you mess with it too much.
Humans are creatures of ritual.
Yeah.
There's no sports leagues that have 2 championships a year. There's no. You ever go to church on like a Tuesday? It feels weird, right? You could do things once a week. You do things once a year. You do something, once a month.
Cyclically.
That's like what we do. Right. And it would be very difficult to get that circadian rhythm to get to work. In addition to the fact that the audience that you're going for here tends to skew older with full-time jobs and families that they're already perhaps struggling to cut one weekend out a year. Now you're trying to get travel and some other stuff, so it would be a difficult sell, but. I think that them brimming to the lip of the cup with popularity, them reaching their capacity in legacy and vintage champs is great. That's a great place for them to be. I think that the next step is expansion of the venue as opposed to expansion of the number of times a year that they run it.
So, what we're kind of talking about is that, if you try to do things over and over, you try to overdo them, you can get this kind of, I don't know, boredom, no lack of excitement, gonna have an issue or whatever. So let's pivot there into some Desperate Ravings. And Ravnica Remastered has officially sort of, has been spoiled. We know every card in it. We know every card that is in a different treatment, an anime treatment. That's another thing they've been doing a lot. All the retro frame stuff. Some of the stuff that's only in collector boosters, which is honestly a little strange, but nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. But what it also means, part of the math that someone, from Michael Caffrey did from Tales of Adventure, noted the serial numbered card math is in line with the initial speculation of if there's one in every 8.3 boxes, 64 serialized cards means 266,000 boxes. That's $50 million in product produced at distribution cost. And that means distributors are going to lose money. Ravnica Remastered is an absolute not good. It's not great. It's absolutely makes me sad. It absolutely makes me go, what were they thinking? In particular, and I know that Commander Masters or whatever was just there, or Commander Legends or whatever, but the fact that they did not put all of the expensive cards in Ravnica in the Ravnica Remastered set is a gigantic miss. It's a huge miss, which makes the product worth that much less. And the fact that Dominaria Remastered last year did not set the world on fire, did not sell out immediately, even with all of the big swinging hitters they had in that set. You can still find it now. You can still find it on discounts, and it's still in stock, just hanging out on store shelves. And a lot of people who bought it got burned. And so this one, a lot of people are shy about it. Orders are being cut over and over again. And I am absolutely astounded as to they had the opportunity to put in Smothering Tithe. Yes, they just reprinted it. Who cares? they put in Cyclonic Rift. That was also just reprinted. Who cares? They bumped it up to Mythic. Why? Because you need to put the money in the set, and they didn't put the money in the set. And this retro frame stuff used to be cool, but as with all things Wizards, if you think it's neat, they're going to run it into the ground. That is such history repeating itself. It is insane at this point. I can take you all the way back to Legions. You like creatures? Here's a set, nothing but creatures. You like gold cards? Here's a Lara Reborn, nothing but gold cards. You know what I mean? Like, you like Legends? Legendary pack with Kamigawa. Like, when they would do these things, they would do them until they just burned them out. Remember when full art lands were cool and wild and only showed up in unsets? And then Zendikar got them, and that was also kind of special because now we could get some, but they're never going to do that over and over again. Now they do it every single time. Like, they run these cool things into the dirt. And you have this opportunity to print expensive cards from a set talking about this stuff. Like, why did Time Spiral Remastered? Why was it awesome? A, the retro frames came out of nowhere. We weren't expecting it. Cards looked good. The foils were great. B, there was no collector product on this. There was no extra juicing with serialized cards and unique cards and anime, whatever. It was go experience the Time Spiral format, which you probably didn't if you weren't playing back then. B, enjoy the retro callbacks and how cool that was. And C, have a good time with it. Not like you need to, go all in on these big expensive products and hope that you sell these expensive collector versions. And when they don't, who's holding the bag? It's the stores or the distributors or both. And this is not looking positive for the first set of 2024. It looks absolutely miserable right now.
Man, I have so much to say on this. No, okay, first off, most of the serialized cards aren't even going to be opened. I'm predicting more than half Wizards are going to get stuck with. It's going to get burned and buried.
Probably.
I don't think most of it's even going to hit distributors. I don't think it's even going to leave WotC's warehouses. I honestly believe that. Because there's no reason, no expectation on this set. Nobody I've talked to in the industry, top to bottom, distributors included, had any expectations out of the set at all. No. Not a one. And part of it is just the timing, right? You're coming off of a couple of good releases that everybody really liked. Really, you could say 3 in a row, right? Where you're talking about Eldraine, Doctor Who, and Ixalan. All well received. Lots of cool cards. People building decks with them, whatever. Nobody's going to need to buy a sealed product of Ravnica Remastered to get things that they can get right now. Because there's nothing that's crazy expensive that's going to end up in those. I mean, what is it going to get? Like the 7th reprint of Shocklands or whatever? Like, nobody's really hurting for those. There's plenty. Like, would the price come down on them a couple of dollars? Maybe, but what's the difference between 8 and 6 or whatever? Like, people aren't that worried about it. They'll just go buy one, right?
Right.
So I think that's the first issue. And I agree with you. As far as putting the right cards in there, I think, like we discussed before, it made no sense to put a lot of those cards into the recent couple of sets as inserts, because those sets were already good. Like, when you look through, like, before we even knew anything about Ixalan, we all knew it was going to sell. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't matter. We didn't know anything about box toppers. We didn't know about these special guest cards or whatever. We all knew it was going to sell. So why waste the time juicing it when you really needed to juice this other set that's coming up in a weird off season? It's kind of right up against Christmas and the holidays or whatever. So people aren't going to have that kind of spin. And you've talked about it and tried to build hype around it right after having an awesome week for Murders at Karlov Manor. Like, literally everything they showed about that, people were excited about. They were excited about the story, the art, the Clue crossover, like, looking through the things to try to find the little references. Like, everybody liked everything about it. So where were you even going to promote this at a point where anybody was going to care? Right? That's the problem. It's just like, this shit had no shot. I don't care if we juiced it entirely. I don't think this had any chance to sell.
Like, I can show you, like, here's what normally happens. What normally happens when things get spoiled, when full sets get released, usually there's an uptick. Usually people get more excited about, because now they know everything that they could get in these packs if they buy them or whatever. And sales of Ravnica Remastered went nowhere after it was fully revealed. All that anime crap moved no needles. All of the retro stuff didn't help at all. Like, all of the extended art stuff, only collectors, no one cares. I'm sorry. And if you decided not to put the most expensive cards in Ravnica into the Ravnica Remastered set, then you messed up. And if Innistrad Remastered is like this, it is going to be an even larger disaster, because this is going to be rough. It's going to be harsh.
I would go as far to say you could put a One Ring equivalent in Ravnica Remastered and would not have hardly moved the needle. Like, that's how much I believe this set had no chance to sell. The way it was set up, the timing, the makeup of it, like and again, people are just going to sit on their money because a couple of weeks later you could just buy Karlov Manor.
Yeah.
Like, there's zero reason to buy this set right now.
Like, when more people learned about Markov Manor, more stuff about it, those sales went up, as it should be.
Oh, and I think that's going to keep going up.
Yeah, and people are digging it, and they think it's neat. But remember, the Shocklands were just going to be the ass kicker of this set, and we're just going to make Ravnica Remaster awesome. And then they put them as box toppers in the Clue product. Are you insane? So, like, that alone was already just a giant, like, hobbling. But when the whole set is out and you're like, so you didn't reprint Doubling Season or Smothering Time? Why?
Yeah.
Question mark?
We got them twice earlier in the year. This product had so many things that, like, picked at it, that it didn't have anything left.
Yeah. Unique.
Yeah, it was nothing unique. It was something that we've seen before. They were riding on the fact that the word remastered was going to help it, but it lost Doubling Season to Eldraine. It lost the Shocklands to Clue. It kept some of the magic, but, like,
and Commander Masters
not exciting
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, in Commander Masters and Eldraine, yes, those were multiple printings, but as we've seen, Cyclonic Rift was also in Commander Masters, and that was at rare, and now it's at Mythic. So, like, okay, but, like, just saying, this is something, like, they have to change whatever they were doing with Innistrad Remastered. I hope, as of right now, they are changing plans, because the alarm bells are going off on Ravnica Remastered, and they're all bad signs.
For me, though, it's like, I don't even know why the product needs to exist. That's the thing. Like, it's not a thing we're clamoring for. There's not cards that people just can't get any other way, or hell, most of them have still been in print in the last few years that you want. It's not even like these cards haven't been printed in 15 years or whatever. Like, because some of the stuff in Time Spiral Remastered we hadn't seen in a minute. So just like, all right, or at least getting cool versions of them. But, like, we're not necessarily getting that in Ravnica Remastered. So it's like between that and the timing, like, if you were going to do this is something you need to be doing. Like, because even when Time Spiral Remastered came, I think it was like in the late spring or something when that hit. It wasn't at Christmas, like
they did also get unlucky with Khan the Great Creator getting banned.
That was another problem. That should have been a very expensive Mythic for the set.
But yeah, I mean, is there anything in this set that's exciting other than the Shocklands?
If you care about the anime thing, and even the anime thing is getting kind of old. Like, it used to be, like, super cool and super wow and super rare, and just some promos or something, and then just some stuff in collectors. And now it's like, well, there's kind of anime stuff all over the place.
It's a shame. I really like the set symbol.
I think
and don't get me wrong, we've been getting a lot of good sets since the summer. Right, so it's like,
you've been doing
R&D, good job. You're making great new cards. We're excited about all the new stuff. I just don't know who was excited about the old Ravnica stuff. Right, like, that's the thing.
Right, I feel like there's nostalgia member berries that they're trying to work off of, but at the same time, the nostalgia was super strong for Time Spiral, and it could have been just as strong. But at the same time, you're also trying to cover 9 sets and create some kind of cohesive environment to play in, while also trying to have a product that's going to get people excited to buy. But Dominaria Remastered has big, giant hitters in it, and it still didn't blow the doors off in any form or fashion, and this is going to land with a thud, and that also sucks.
I want to throw in something here, because I do like giving suggestion if I'm going to complain about a thing.
Sure.
On these type of retro sets, don't care that they're good for limited. Like, let people play limited with it, fine. But when you're making decisions that make it bad for the constructed players, you're going to hurt sales. Just load it with everything you need to load it with if you're going to do it. Otherwise, I think you're hurting yourself. We've seen it multiple times with multiple sets now, because don't get me wrong, I think draft is still important. And I think, especially for your, like, regular releases, whatever, great. Those should have that thought put into it. But when you're asking people to pay a premium for a booster over the regular price, and you're trying to sell them something that they might kind of already have, like, you got to go all out and make it worth it.
My suggestion would be no collector booster. Stop it with the collector
Also
booster.
true.
On a remastered product, you want the experience of opening the old cards and or experience what some of the old format may be or look like, or some of the cards you could get from those days or whatever. But this collector booster on top, it did not work with Dominaria. It sure as hell ain't working with Ravnica. I don't think it's going to be working for Innistrad, and I would just not do that product at all. But either way, we got other things to be angry about, as you do. So there was a post on Reddit, the Magic TCG Reddit, about how artists are treated in relation to events. And as I understand it, this would be ReedPop. They say Wizards, but ReedPop runs the Magic Con events. Again, I'm guessing this is relating to Magic Con events. Greg Staples, who's a well-known artist, he's done great. He says the old days it was flight, hotel, free tables, and the stipend. Not as old, flight, hotel, and free tables. A few years ago, hotel and free tables. Or recently, free tables.
Right.
2023, artist pays for 2 tables for $500. 2024, artist pays for 2 tables for $750. And that is insane and is terrible and is just a bad way of treating what are some of the biggest kind of rock stars in Magic. Like, your rock stars generally, and when it comes to live events, are not Jace, are not your planeswalkers. They are these people who bring these worlds to life and make these illustrations that you see time and time again, that bring back all those good member berries, that drive, remaster sets. Well, the artists are important too. I can tell you at least at SCG or at CSI, when we have artists out, they are special guests. They are, flown out. They're given their own hotel room. They don't have to share. They have, their own tables. They're not charged for those by any means. We have someone who's on staff who checks on them, brings them water, make sure they have, bathroom breaks and go eat lunch and stuff like that. All of those things are built into the system. And if this is the reality, I think this is 1000% the wrong way to go. And artists are not vendors. Artists are creatives who make things happen, who have to work usually very hard to make these type of appearances. And if they can make some money off of them, high five. But if you're trying to charge them like this, it's just not the right way to go. I just don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, how do they do this how do comic book conventions do this?
I honestly don't know.
They pay for their space.
Right. I mean, I guess for a comic book artist, it's a little bit different, because comic book artists and writers are much more the rock stars of their genres than the artists, I guess, for Magic. It is a very different thing I'm asking. So maybe it is not as simple.
No. Like, a lot of artists pay for their stuff there, unless they're one of the headline special guests.
Yeah.
The artists pay for their spaces.
Sure.
In my understanding.
And it seemed like there was some, there was a little bit of disagreement. I wouldn't say it was like an argument or anything, but there was a comment from Elena Danner in the Reddit post that was pushing back a little bit on what Greg Staples was writing. But the fact remains that it is much less favorable. Whether it is acceptable or not is a different agreement. But again, this is another of these downward trends of things ain't like what they used to be, and that they're worse. There's not really a better way to summarize it, and that includes for the artists. Even though they're getting more artists, they're asking for more art, and we've seen what that results in a lot of the time is overworked hours and panicked people trying to meet deadlines and mistakes and bad decisions on all counts from there as well. So it's a hard thing to try to square as a runner of events. Particularly ReedPop.
Yeah.
They're new to Magic, and since they're coming in, they're trying to do what they do and don't really know what used to be done here at old GPs and things like that.
I guess there is also the question of when I ran my smaller events, I paid for artists to be there because they were a draw, right? Having Arcade Post or whoever show up was it helped attendance. So that's why I paid for it. Right. And to some extent, maybe the same for, like you're saying, with, CSI events or whatever, possibly. Does that change, say, Vegas, if Magali isn't there or whatever?
Right.
Right. I probably not.
And based on based on what Elena's saying is that there are sponsored artists, and if they're sponsored, they'll get their way paid, for example, and their tables paid for and whatnot. And then others can apply for these things that are based on fees. And I also understand the fact that when you're running a show, yes, it's nice to be able to get a fee out of anything that's taking up space because you're paying for the space.
Sure.
And yes, artists can absolutely make plenty of money on these ventures, and that's great too. And that's what I want for them. That's why you want them to come out as well. You want them to be a draw and be able to get something out of it because it's a lot of work. But ultimately, the idea that you want to pay for them, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where if the system starts to accept that, you know what I mean, and if they're like, well, okay, we'll still work it out with a fee, right? And we'll still work it out when the fee goes up. That's when the business side kind of kicks in and you go, well, if I can get these great artists and they can pay their way and they can pay for their space, it all works great for me. And if the fans are excited and if the artists make money, you know what I mean? You start to kind of rationalize
that's going to be the end result is, are the artists able to make a decent amount of money? So they'll want to keep paying for the space.
Right.
Like that's the real kicker to the whole thing.
And for the larger names, for the Magalis, for the John Avons and whatnot, absolutely, you'll fit the bill because those are the bigger names that'll pull in the bigger people who will just go to that show because that artist is there. And that's awesome too.
I would also ask too, and this isn't like an indictment on the artist, because I do think we should be just inviting more of them for the work they do. Mm-hmm. But for the artists that are paid, are they doing anything extra for the events? Because I don't know if I remember seeing, like, say whoever the headline artists were, like, doing in some speaking engagement or whatever. Right?
John Avon did like this musical presentation thing at the Magic Con that he was at. I think it was in Vegas.
I was probably busy.
Right. He had like a whole presentation. You can find it on YouTube.
Okay.
Where cool. He like wrote like these soundscapes to go along with like his
okay. See, that's pretty cool then.
And that was super rad. I thought that was neat. But for what it's worth, generally there's nothing special that you want out of the artist other than please show up and be at your tables during the event.
Yeah, because I just think about it, like the few times I've been paid for events, like I feel like I need to do something so you get your money's worth out of paying me to be there. You know what I mean? Because like it could be anybody else who's here. So like, let me do something,
promotion. Can they promote the event on their channels well enough that their fans know that this is happening?
Sure.
And so it's not quite like a scandal or whatever. It's just like, if this is the new normal, why is it the new normal? And there is exceptions that are made for artists. It's not just you pay or you don't come to the event ever. It's based on different factors. Okay. Cool. I want to move on here to something at least a little more exciting in the Going Infinite. On the Blog Talk, on the Mark Rosewater Tumblr, he noted, is there anything particular that you're excited to see in terms of release next year? New planes, mechanics, etc. And the idea that you were looking at Murders at Karloff Manor, where you build a giant puzzle woven in the set, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Outlaws at Thunder Junction. I'm very excited to see how they do that. Are we going to get revolvers ? Or something?
Give me a stagecoach vehicle.
I'm personally very excited for Bloomborough. I think it has the most potential of any set next year to be big and impacting and create characters that we're going to be like, oh snap, I can't wait to see so and so.
Oh no, I just had a thought. You might get a Peppa Pig crossover with Bloomborough.
Ooh, that'd be great. Or Bluey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, any children's television. Let's get a Sesame Street secret lair.
Blue's Clues, Sesame Street.
I'm just saying, Hasbro owns the licensing rights to Peppa Pig.
Oh, that's true. They do. That's right. Entertainment One.
Well, they just sold it, so.
Oh, well.
No, that's fair.
Maybe they got it in under the wire.
Right. and there is Duskborn, House of Horror.
Sure.
Look, if you got to give me a guy with a hockey mask, I know you got to make it distinct enough that you don't get sued, but you better have a dude with a hocky mask in that set. That's all I'm saying.
I hope we do something more than just like body horror stuff, because I got worn out on that on Innistrad. Let's do something more.
Modern horror as opposed to gothic or eldritch.
Yeah.
I think is fine.
Like I'm thinking maybe some Saw type stuff of like traps and things
Yeah, that's fine.
that would be
chainsaws,
cool. Chainsaws, maybe some Hellraiser in there with
Yeah.
like some Pinhead type characters.
Sure.
Oh, give me creepy stuff too, like monsters under the bed or weird
Right.
things. Like
People under the
Pennywise.
stairs
We'll get
and-
some clowns.
yeah.
Yeah, and some Texas Chainsaw Massacring up in there.
What's the Candyman?
Ooh,
all
give
of
me the
those
creepy
classic,
mansion. Give me like something in the artwork or something. Like,
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I'd be
Yeah.
like,
eyes behind the.
very cool. So yeah, there's a lot coming.
There's lots to be excited for. I think I'm most excited for Thunder Junction. But Bloomburrow looks great. I'm excited for the
I
horror
think I'm in the
stuff.
same boat. I think Outlaws at Thunder Junction, because it feels so different, but a lot of potential. I'm kind of curious to see what happens there.
And I love what I've seen of Karloff Manor so far.
Yeah.
And every of all of the things we've discussed, I want to put a bow on what we've talked about. It's been a sad episode.
Pretty sad.
It's not been a great episode for news. For fans of good news, this one ain't it. A lot of people lost jobs. A lot of a set isn't doing well. A lot of upset folks, based on artists and card releases and various things. We had a little bit of good news in there. Timeless looks great. The Eternal Championships was great. Yeah. A little bit of a silver lining, but in general, not the happiest episode. But it's the end of the year. We are all making our resolutions. We're all gonna look forward to what's to come. I'm about to head home for the holidays, back to Ohio with my folks. And if Mark Rosewater is hopeful and still excited to be making Magic, then I'm still hopeful that Magic is going to be exciting to play.
Oh, I will say that based on this year, I think there's still a lot of good Magic to come.
Yes.
Right. I think the 4 core releases, solid. Even these look solid for next year. Mm-hmm. The in-between Universes Beyond products were good this year.
Yeah.
Nothing to complain. And we're going to have Fallout next year as well that people are already excited about. So yeah, it's just these weird filler sets that we had a problem with. Everything else was good. I just need them to
calm the F down. I need them to slow down, release less. They've fired a bunch of people, so that should not be an issue.
Yeah, and I'm hearing about it. Yeah, I've heard some rumblings about Alchemy being affected, some Secret Lairs being affected. Don't know. Yeah, we are playing the Modest Mouse. Good news for people who like bad news action. But Modest Mouse is also sweet. So yeah. Either way, we're trying to wrap it up as best we can as we turn the corner here into the finisher. MTG's Cluedo-inspired crossover lets you win by fingering a murderer. ... Wait, pause, phrasing. The board game coverage channel Dicebreaker sent out that particularly provocative post in response to MTG's upcoming Murders at Karloff Manor. That is certainly going to be a cinematic release. Wait, pause.
Climactic release.
It's going to be a climactic release. Wait, pause, phrasing. So tell me, how might you advertise Magic's next offering, Ruben?
I will die mad that the greatest detective on the plane of Ravnica will never get to match wits with the greatest thief in the multiverse because they killed him off in War of the Spark. So if I were WotC, I'd bring back Dak Faden and after faking his own death and put Detective Proft on the case, or better yet, have someone pretending to be Dak do it. Because if there's one thing that Ravnica has more of than murderers, it's friggin' shapeshifters. Everyone is a shapeshifter on that plane.
There's a lot of shapeshifters.
That's true. Yeah. That's damn true.
Power Dragon?
All right, so Clue's a classic, obviously. But if you want to get in touch with the kids, you got to stay on top of the hot trends. So I think they got to get on it as soon as possible. We got to talk about the most popular hidden roles game out right now, Among Us. That's still a thing, right?
Yeah, still super popular.
Is it?
No.
2-3 years ago?
Probably not. Probably not.
It got me through the pandemic.
It got a lot of
people through the pandemic.
Now, people love Ravnica for a variety of reasons, but one of the major ones is the noir vibe of the city. So I'll recommend they come out with the spiritual successor to one of the greatest whodunits of all time, as everyone's favorite homunculus is on the run for the newest Netflix original, Who Framed Fibblethip? We need to know.
That'd be great.
I'd watch that, actually.
I would like, if that's what
you have an animated Fibblethip and then Bob Hoskins detective, that'd be cool.
You know, it's funny. Just as a real quick aside here, I think it would be interesting if Magic took sort of a over the top kind of comedic, feeling with its show, like sort of Thor did like slapstick over the top stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
If Magic kind of made fun of itself a little bit, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It doesn't have to be the most serious, serious thing ever. You get
unsets every once in a while. I think that we're going to get a little bit of that with Bloomborough and Thunder Junction.
Mm-hmm.
They poke fun at themselves quite a bit. They're not as wild with it as some other IPs. Thor definitely went way in the direction of self-reference and things like that. But yeah, I agree. I think that Magic is at its best when it's having a little bit of fun at its own expense.
And thank you, Xavier Dragnisi, right at the very end. Subscribe on those dangling primes. Thanks again. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, thanks everybody for listening. It's been an interesting one. We'll say that.
Thank you, Ruben.
It has been a show, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
There you go. As we move on here to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmikes. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. But join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.